My name is David Rodigan and I'm a DJ, believe it or not.
While we're on DJ, a lot of people talk about DJ, selector, MC. Can you clear up, the appropriate?
Traditionally, a DJ is someone who plays records. An MC is someone, a master of ceremonies, who chats between records. A toaster is someone who would rhyme in time on the B-side of a version. Jamaican music historically was where MCs began their trade, if you like, as it was referred to. MCing is your DJing is your trade, so Lord Comic made a tune called that. And then of course it spread to America and it became rap, and well, we all know the rest. But it was originated in Kingston, Jamaica, and the dance halls in the late 50s with DJs like Count Wachuki, King Stitz, or Lord Comic. They were the pioneers of the music in terms of freestyling and vibing the crowd while the selector played on one turntable, Jah Shaka style, and they would be interspersed with jive talk, I dig you now, what was it, some of the things that, later will be greater with your disco operator, and said the farmer said to the potato, I'll plant you now and dig you later. It was all this kind of jive talk, and there was a certain way of doing it as well, with a kind of tone of voice, and U. Roy epitomised that. And then he made history in 1969, 70, when he had the top 3 records in a Jamaican hit parade. Wake the Town, songs like that, and that was him DJing over Treasure Island rhythm. So that's where it all started.
Have you got top 3 tunes that represent Rodigan?
Dub Plates Playing in the Ghetto Tonight is one of my favourite tunes because I love Johnny Osborne, I love the Heaven Knows rhythm, do 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 do, and it epitomises a sound system playing in Jamaica, which is open air. I first heard sound system in Jamaica in 1979, played on sounds in Jamaica like Volcano sound and then Jammy's sound in Western Kingston and Waterhouse in the mid-80s. So that would be one song that reflected that. A very, very important piece of music was made by a group called the Abyssinians, and that record is called Declaration of Rights. And that, for me, is one of the most important reggae records ever made. It is very, very, very important. It describes the journey from Africa to the plantations and what happened. And it is one of the most soulful records I've ever made, along with Bob Andy's Unchained. And those would be 3 songs that would immediately come to mind. There are many, many songs that I love, but those would be 3 that I would immediately recall. And I would put Declaration of Rights at number 1, Unchained at number 2, and Dub Plates Playing in the Ghetto at number 3, because Dub Plates Playing in the Ghetto is a celebration of urban life, but those other 2 songs, Unchained and Declaration of Rights, have much more significance. Naturally, when you study the lyrics, it'll become apparent. If you know the songs, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know the songs, listen to them, and I defy you not to be moved by them.
Were you ever tempted at any stage to initiate your own sound system?
Yeah, I got as far as creating a design and drawing it on a piece of paper and taking it, it's Toddler T here, to Sheffield, where, I know he's here, yeah, I'm winding him up. Toddler T, because he's from the Steel City, and I used to buy my records in the Wicker. And there was a little printing shop in the Wicker, and I took it there, and I said, can you make a rubber stamp that looks like this? And it was a sound system box that I'd drawn by hand with a speaker in it, and that Rodigan's sound system. And I thought they would make it look a bit more professional. What they did was they actually reproduced exactly what I'd done on this piece of paper and created the rubber stamp. That was as far as I got. And I stamped this on all my records that I bought, and I had one speaker built by a sound systems builder in Sheffield, and I had it in my flat in Nether Edge, one big speaker and one turntable. That was as far as I got in building Rodigan's sound system, I'm afraid. Pretty pathetic, right? But hey, my intentions were honourable.
You're obviously quite integrated to a certain extent with the dubstep scene now, and the music Toddler's pushing is dubstep hybrid with a lot of the dancehall vibes, especially. How did that come about, I guess? I mean, how did you become aware of this new scene and movement?
I became aware of it through my sons, Jamie and Oliver, particularly Jamie, who introduced me to dubstep a number of years ago, and he was deeply into it. he'd also been deeply into drum and bass prior to that. And I liked certain elements of dubstep because I could see the direct musical lineage right the way back to King Tubby and Errol T and the engineers in Jamaica in the early 70s. I could see it and feel it in the way the music was constructed. And the emotion and the sound that was produced by it and the passion that you got back, I saw in these dances with Casper and so on. Breakage. And then, of course, I started being sampled on some of their recordings and when particularly on that Breakage track, and then Casper asked me if I'd take part in his album and do some things on that, which I did. And I hope this doesn't sound patronizing, because it is not. I'm indebted to the dubstep fraternity for the way in which they've embraced me and welcomed me into their fraternity. It has been a privilege. There is a direct connection, but they have given me such a truly warm welcome, and they've opened the doors to me. And sometimes in music fraternities that's difficult, because a fraternity is a fraternity. And I am decidedly from a different generation, and yet I have been warmly welcomed, and I'm most grateful to the fraternity for that. And also, equally important, to the fans of that music who have responded to the way that I play and the songs that I play, especially at clubs like Fabric. I mean, Fabric was paramount in pushing the door open and saying, Rodigan, come and play what you want to play in your way. And the first ever gig I did at Fabric, I was a nervous wreck, to be honest with you, because I stood there thinking, what am I doing here? Why have I agreed to this? What am I going to play? No one in there was older than 22, 23, and there was all this dubstep being played, which I understood to a degree, and I just thought, hang on, I came here for a reason, because of the connection to dub plates and Jamaica and Jamaican dub, and I talked about it and played it, and the response was just amazing, and has been on many an occasion since.
While we're talking about being welcome into sort of the fraternity, one thing I've always wondered, slightly controversial, is that was it difficult for you as a white man coming into the reggae movement in Jamaica? So we tend to hear quite a lot of the reverse of black music being embraced in traditionally white cultures, and it must be something that crossed your mind at some point.
Yeah, I mean, when I first did an audition for BBC Radio London, I was the only white person at the audition. That's a fact. And when I started working on BBC Radio London, the people that listened thought I was black until they saw me do a gig at the London Apollo Club and then a live broadcast on BBC Radio London, and they realised I wasn't. And equally, when I first started working on Jamaican radio in 1983, they presumed I was a black man from England because I knew about the music and cared about it. So when they saw me, they were, somewhat surprised, to say the least. But the advantage I had, if that's the correct term, was that they had heard me and not seen me, and they knew from listening to me that I cared. The fact that I happened to be white, and incidentally there are white Jamaicans, not many, but there are, was a surprise, but it had gone past that, because they knew that I cared about this. I wasn't hitching my horse to a bandwagon. I've been following this thing since I was 12, 13 years of age. I was immersed in it. It is a form of, it's like a fever, and there is no known antidote. I've said that many times. If you get this reggae fever, it is a passion, and it is universal. I mean, there are people all over the world that love this music just like I do. I'm not unique. There are millions of us. And, we go to Sunsplash, we go to Rotterdam Sunsplash, we went to Sunfest in Jamaica, Sunsplash in Jamaica, Summer Jam in Germany, whatever, wherever. This music, right across Scandinavia, virtually every country has powerful, passionate people who care about this music. Bob Marley epitomized it 30 years ago. He passed away, and yet the legend lives on. Today, on the plane, the Independent, double page spread by Ian Burrell, the legacy of Bob Marley. 30 years later, this man's music still moves people to such a degree that when they first hear him, they're like, The Legend album, how many weeks at #1 on the American Billboard chart? Weeks at #1. Not 2 or 3 weeks, weeks and weeks. That's the significance of this music, and I'm proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud to share it. And I'm so excited by the fact that in the last year I've been doing a lot of university gigs where your first and second, third year, no one's in there over 22, 21, and they're going nutsoid, for this music. And do you know what? Some of the biggest forwards you get are for songs like, Is This Love by Bob. Is This Love? Is This Love? You Can Get It If You Really Want. Desmond Dekker. That was made in 1970. They weren't even a twinkle in their dad's eye when that song was made. Why is it so popular? Why is it up in the morning slaving for bread? So these songs spoke out for people. When you're young, you think you can change the world. That's part of the joy of being young, that you want to change things. You want to, when you see injustice, when you think you can actually do something about it. And that's the power of rebel music. Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, that's the power of the music. That's what music does. That's the joy of it. That, when I first saw Jimi Hendrix playing Purple Haze and The Wind Cries Mary, it's like, what? I was fortunate enough to see one of his gigs when I was younger, You couldn't ignore that. When I first heard Bob Dylan, I shall be released, they say every man. I mean, those songs, and that's it. Bob Marley, Bob Dylan, Martin Luther King, Marvin Gaye, Otis Redding, right the way down the line. And one of the joys of reading that piece in The Independent by Ian Burrell is the significance of the weight of these songs, that they still have a serious impact by comparison to a lot of what's now being made. And the fact that they were made acoustically, the analog recordings, the musicians playing together. So much music that I hear today is so perfect, it's tedious. Where's the mistakes? Where's the nuance? Why is it so homogenized? Why is it impossible to tell where it was made? Back in the day, you could say, it was made at Channel One, it was made at Abbey Road. You could identify a studio. You could even identify an engineer's mix. I would know that's a Tubby mix, that's a Scientist mix, that's an Errol T mix, that's Harry J Studio, that's Sylvan Morris, that's Channel One. You could hear the difference in the way it was made. Now, homogenized. A lot of it's bullshit, in my opinion. It's vacuous, it doesn't have the substance of these older recordings. And what I do like about, I'm not saying that you can't make electronic music which isn't exciting, because of course you can, clearly. And is one example of that, right? But many people in Jamaica said that was the death of reggae. When Slang Tang kicked in '85, it was the death of reggae, they said, because it wasn't real. It was electronic. But there have been some great electronic recordings made, and dubstep has seen, I've seen how a dubstep record physically is made, how it's created. It's very, very exciting. And you can't deny it. When you see it played in context, that's all you need to see. This is David Rodigan in the Alps, Austria, with the Urban Nerds. It is going to be completely nutsoid.